Hello everyone, welcome to the Protection Conversation. I am Catherine Menganyi. On our first episode, we would like to ask ourselves, what do we mean by protection? A conversation that is worth thinking about, a conversation that is worth listening. When something bad happens to a child, a woman, or a vulnerable person, we'll hear everyone often say that they should have been protected. Something should have been done to protect them. They needed to be protected. But a question we need to ask ourselves, what did we actually mean by saying they needed protection? What do we mean when we say they should have been protected? And that is our conversation for today. Protection is a system designed to prevent harm, respond when harm happens, ensure accountability, support long-term safety and recovery. So as we think about all this, now this is the time to ask ourselves. So when we ask ourselves, why were they not protected? They should have been protected. We need to go back and see, were we able to prevent them from harm? Were we able to respond ourselves? Were we able to ensure accountability? And are there any long-term solutions that we put in place? So this clearly means protection is not a one-time action, it's a chain. That one, if the link fails, the person is left with another episode. So that is part of the protection conversation, where we are very clear at ensuring the system we are working with is put in place in a way that the conversation is not a one-day conversation. We are not working with knee-jerk reaction. Something has happened, we've reacted, made a lot of noise, tried to put everybody on toes, then it ends there. And we assume that we had protected that woman, that girl, that vulnerable person. So we need to see, what does real protection include? So real protection includes preventing or stopping harm before it happens. In that community you are in, when is the last time you brought up a very clear conversation on preventing harm in your neighborhood? In the homestead, that young girl you live with, when is the last time you started a conversation and ensuring that she's protected? The young boy, because children are mostly vulnerable against violence, that child near you, when is the last time you ensured a safe environment? Did you detect any early warning signs? Because the warning signs that can help us prevent violence are very many. One, if you look at children, you can get a child who was very happy playing with others, decides to withdraw. So as we're talking about protecting this child, did you realize there were warning signs that could have made you come up and protect your child? Is this child you could send to the shops and the child would run to the shops without any problem? But that day you send the child to the shops, this child decides to tell you, I am not going, or becomes sluggish. You'll think the child is rude, but now ask yourself, are these part of the warning signs? A child who's been going to school so well, then decides they don't want to go to school anymore. You need to go deeper and see, what are some of the reasons? So this is the protection conversation. Asking ourselves those hard questions, digging deeper, and getting solutions that are owned by us and implemented by all of us. Safe reporting systems. These are places where survivors can report without fear. We have heard all the stories, every day, everywhere, where survivors go to report to the systems. One, they are stigmatized, they are blamed, and everybody makes them feel that they were the problem. An example, a survivor of sexual violence, a date rape survivor, and we'll keep on asking them, who took you there? You consented to be there. But nobody asked, did they consent to be abused sexually? These are also the conversation we ask. A survivor who walked, coming from work and you're passing a certain street, then you're defiled or you're raped. But the question will always be, nobody will look at what had happened to the survivor. But we're busy looking at the worst question that you can ask them is, who told you to pass via that route? But you didn't want to hear what prompted them to do that. So this is the conversation on putting up safe reporting system, that a survivor will walk into a health facility and they are not blamed to what happened to them. A survivor will walk into the police station and they are comfortable to report without being blamed. A survivor will walk to court and they are defending a case, they've reported a case, and we will not judge them. A survivor will walk to you also and tell you what happened without judging, you'll give care. The justice process. This is a whole conversation that we need to look at. What legal action and consequences of perpetrators are there? So is our justice system friendly to survivors? So the protection conversation is beyond looking at what happens immediately, but the long term, in the long run, what are these survivors and what impact are they getting? Then the long-term safety. After survivors have told their stories, who follows back to look at the psychosocial component? How many times do we report in the media about survivors? But do we go back and see, after we've shared their story in the social media, in all the media spaces, do we go back and listen to how they're faring on, the re-traumatization? How are people picking up on them? So this is the survivors, this is the protection conversation. Because if we don't do this, we do not take responsibility. So it's good to look at what are these, what are the possible solutions, and what are we doing to protect and ensure follow-up. Safe spaces. Most survivors will come out and say they're in danger, but do we have enough safe spaces for them where they can be kept safe to ensure that they heal nicely and they can share their stories? So if we only rescue but never prevent, never ensure justice, and never support recovery, we did not protect survivors. We only reacted. Now, this is the hard conversation that we're having on the protection conversation. We do not only want to react, we want to act. The family and community play a bigger role. So who should take responsibility for protection? One big thing is the family and community. All survivors are not from space. All survivors are not, they're not from any tree. They come from a community, they come from a family. So the conversation should start in the family, in the community. So we need to create safe homes, speak up, and stop hiding abuse. I have been in the GBV space for more than 16 years, almost 20 years right now. But the most hurting thing is when young girls are at harm in their own families. They feel like their home is not a safe space. They will want to run away from home because, one, they're subjected to violence in the homes. But how many times do we get mothers protect their spouses when it comes to defilement of their children? How many times do we hear stories of a young child who even took or even stole some little money for many reasons, but because we didn't get time to investigate, this child is even beaten to death? How many times do we get children neglected in our own homesteads? I got to meet young children going to school. And at that time they are going to school, you'll get them, they are dirty. They have clothes that are totally torn. And when you look at their parents, it's a very big contrast. It clearly means that we do not get time to look at our children. So that's a deeper conversation that we will unpack. Institutions. Those are schools, health facilities, organizations. We need to have clear policies, trained staffs, and safe referrals. When we talk about the workplaces, there is violence against people who are working. That is sexual exploitation and abuse at the workplace. Do we get the courage to speak about it? Do we get the courage to see how do we protect people who are working from violence at the workplace? They had conversations. Because of power imbalance, people who are below power are being violated at the workplace, but the conversations cannot take place. Do we have policies? Do we even understand the policies that protect people who are working? There are a lot of policies. The Sexual Offense Act is very clear. But now, do we pick this and ensure that something is done? We have government systems, budgets, child protection structures, GBV services, and all the systems up. So as we have this conversation, we know that the government systems are clearly responsible to protect their people against violence. The Constitution is very clear. The laws are very clear. But now, are the systems in place putting that into action? Then law enforcement and justice. The law enforcement system, investigation, prosecution, and protection of survivors. We have the protection of survivors, protection of the Witness Protection Act. Is it in place? Do people really understand I can be a witness and the government and the law is there to protect me? So why are we defining protection matters? Very interesting. If protection is not clearly defined, we miss the point of putting systems in place. So we need to be clear. Protection is not defined by when systems become symbolic, they only exist on paper. So we cannot define protection by putting very clear systems that are written just to tick the boxes. Responsibility becomes invisible when we don't take our responsibilities. And then failure becomes normal. We have normalized violence. We will just speak about it, say about it, create knee-jerk movements, move around. We'll do advocacy at that time. We'll do activism at that time. But after that, we start blaming survivors. We start blaming families or communities. Instead, we do not blame the system that has brought us into this. So we need to think. Before we ask why protection fails, we must first understand what protection really means. So as we're putting systems into check, we are blaming the systems. Let us truly understand what protection means. Protection is not charity. It will never be charity. And that is where we all go wrong. We assume that protection is a short-term thing. It's just about giving back. Protection is not about giving back. It's not rescue alone. We are not working that you've had Catherine has undergone violence. All the systems, everyone concentrates on how do I rescue Catherine? How do I remove Catherine from that place? How do I ensure that Catherine at that specific, which is so good. But now protection should be beyond the rescue. It should even prevent violence from occurring. In a way that once systems are put into place, it becomes a smooth way. What happens after rescue? Do you reintegrate me back to the community? Do you ensure that my safety is taken care of? Do you ensure that my psychosocial part is really taken care of? Then protection is a system, and systems must work. So if we look at the system as we've broken down this conversation, we are looking at a whole thing. We are not looking at working in silos. So this system cannot work in silos. The police, the judiciary, the health system, the community, they cannot work independently. A system must come together. The organizations supporting ending gender-based violence, the organizations at the community level that are speaking up and putting the community into task, we all need to come back and strengthen this system. If we want a safer community, we must stop reacting to harm and start building new protection, real protection. So it is this moment that as we continue with the protection conversation, we are not going to react. We are going to put systems into check and ensure that we don't come up just to speak about violence when it occurs, but we ensure that all systems are in place to even prevent this violence from occurring. As we end this conversation today, I want us to ask ourselves the hard questions. When we talk about protection, what do we mean? When we talk about protecting women and girls and the vulnerable from violence, are we just responding to the immediate action or what has happened? Are we still responding to stories from survivors? So in our next episode, we want to dig deep and ask ourselves, what does coordination on paper and coordination in practice mean? How do we put these two things together to ensure that we are walking the talk but not talking alone? Tune in to the next episode.